Thank you all for coming on such a great day. I apologize for bringing everybody indoors on a lovely early spring day, and I get the good view of the mountains, so if anybody was skiing and just came back in, I'm sorry. But this is a really important event. My name is Noel Musson from the Musson Group. I'm joined by Suzanne Paul and where's Courtney? Courtney over here from the Musson Group. You probably see more of Suzanne and Courtney if you're part of the Comprehensive Plan Committee than you have of me lately. I think there's a lot of people that are on the Comprehensive Plan Committee here, and I just wondered if everybody that's on the Comp Plan Committee could just raise your hand so everybody knows. So these are the people that are in the town that are on the Comprehensive Plan Committee that are here to listen to you and are going to be your conduit to how we develop the comprehensive plan. Our mission really today is to hear from you rather than you hear from us. Well, a comprehensive plan, maybe a little redundant to some of you, but is a really important tool for your community. It's really a shared vision for what this town thinks about in the future. It helps you define goals and set for the future as a vision. It helps you think through implementation measures. So this is where we want to be, and these are the steps that we're going to take to try to get there. And it's really a roadmap for investments and planning. I think about a comprehensive plan really is a lot more like it's a land use tool at its heart, but we can start to think about how different elements of your community fit into that land use guidance. And what we're working on is really an update to your existing comprehensive plan, which was done about 2003. Thank you. Comprehensive plans, I think, are a way to create, fundamentally, they're the legal basis for your land use ordinances. They help you be eligible for state grants. More and more state grants and loans are going to be tied to a comprehensive plan that's consistent to the Growth Management Act, which is the legislative law that essentially sets up this whole comprehensive plan process and requirements. More importantly, it helps a community plan with intention. Where do you don't know where you want to be as a community until you start to think about where you want to be. Let's define that and then think about how we want to get there. Comprehensive plans have a range of different topic areas. I'm not going to read the whole list, but it ranges from thinking about your economy and your housing, all the way to thinking about agriculture and natural resources. And those are all parts of the conversations that we're having and trying to develop some conversations around. They can also include things like climate and sustainability and public health in newer times. Those aren't required by the Growth Management Act, but they are things that really tie into, fundamentally, all the other topic areas that we're talking about.
We do have a sort of very brief summary of some of the key themes that came out of the survey. People love living in Carabasset Valley. They love the recreational opportunities. They love the tight-knit, friendly community feel. People are worried about climate change and how does that impact the recreation economy, but even more so just sort of like, you know, the roads, the bridges, infrastructure. People are concerned about housing, cost of housing and housing availability for year-round residents, for seasonal workers, for businesses, much like many other places in the state. And we're just starting to come up with some preliminary takeaways. So we've done the population section. Some of the key takeaways there is that the town's population is getting older. There are more housing units, but they're becoming less affordable. In terms of housing, I feel like since you guys have been doing such great work with the study that was done a few years ago, and then the great work that Western Maine Mountain Housing is doing, people are pretty well versed in what's going on with housing. But some of the data we found that the majority of the units here are detached single-family home units, but for a relatively rural small town, there's quite a bit of multifamily housing, primarily up at the resort, but that does exist. And the vacancy has gone down between 2000 and 2020, which I think is interesting as well. And then we look at Maine Housing produces an affordability index, which is sort of fascinating. And it's really just a snapshot, but this graph here, you can see charts, Carabasset Valley, Franklin County, and the state of Maine in terms of their affordability index. So above 1 is considered affordable, below 1 is considered not
share some of the ideas that you came up with.
Great. We put a ton of places that community gathers, but it wasn't the top priority for any of us to like speak on that, so we're gonna skip that. I think we all were thinking that the community could have more trails, more infrastructure, which can encompass trails, it can encompass like sanitation stuff, it can encompass all sorts of restaurants, all sorts of things like that, and housing to have staff for those restaurants in the community. We also had a lot of discussion on the balance between growth and conservation, how to kind of like achieve both, and what is like a theoretical maximum that people would be comfortable with, and the town would be good for this area, and how to get to that in a healthy way. And then we really just talked about sharing these challenges in some ways with other communities, making some of these issues regional issues and making sure to involve partners there.
Well, the village center piece, there's really, I think the consensus was that there's no good way to have one village center for the town of Carabasset. It's really down in the valley, and again up here on the mountain. Is there an ideal location that's up on the mountain? Not necessarily, but somewhere at the bottom of the access road could potentially be there. We spent quite a few minutes on that, but not a long time. Got nowhere other than what we already had. When there's a community gather, there was one piece on that was the bars. So that was the only unanimous decision.
The bars. Good choice.
Is there something that you wish the town had? You know, it's workforce housing, which I think is a central theme going through the building, probably today it has been. One was a dedicated recreational facility. It was for town use, not a shared facility, but town-only use. Recreational access to the Penobscot Indian Nation lands for increased trails. And kind of tied in with that, lake access. It would be the easiest for us, but again, dealing with Penobscot lands, across the carriage road to Flagstaff Lake. That end of the lake is the deepest, and we have worked historically, Lloyd, probably what was it, 15, 20 years ago, trying to gain access to the lake. One of the things that we need to protect, the Carabasset River. That it's an important piece of us. And then we kind of talked about some viewpoints. Oh my gosh corner. That's kind of an iconic corner. But we really have a tremendous amount. Copper Sugarloaf, Main Hudson Trails, top of Stratton Brook Hut. I mean, just think of all those little vistas when you're out off the pavement. It is all of a sudden pretty interesting what you can see from the Bigelows, the Crockers, Sugarloaf. We even talked about the new trail, Chipper. Is that one that goes around the back and you look and you see the bowls, the Crocker, and then you come around and all of a sudden the Bigelow's in front of you. So there's a lot of scenic vistas that is not necessarily any one person, but for a lot of people.
Great, thank you. How about this table?
I can do it. Where does the community gather in Carabasset Valley? We said pretty much the same thing. The bars, but also the AGC, Mountainside Grocers, the library, Sugarloaf, obviously, outdoor center, a lot of group activities kind of here, and the vegan room and the back room kind of thing, when big groups get together. And is there something that you wish the town had that it does not have now? So workforce housing was, always there. A car wash, more gathering spots for people to just gather and hang out together. Urgent care, a dentist, and increased connectivity just amongst all of the trails. So, you know, connecting West Mountain to the narrow gauge area, connecting, you know, West Mountain over to the, I mean, I live on West Mountain, so I'm being biased right now. But, you know, but basically anywhere that you are in the resort, you can get anywhere else, and even in the valley to be able to easily connect as well. So the daycare, so to have like a quality childcare that has availability for young families, physical therapy, increased walking trails as well. And we talked a lot about the Boneyard area, which is the area kind of like across the river from the rack, kind of going up 27 there, and using that area for workforce housing, but also kind of making almost a hub of community there. So to be able to, you know, have not only workforce housing, but maybe some more restaurants, some more just community space, like outdoor space, that might be nice.
Did you mark that on your map too?
We did, yes.
Okay.
And putting an urgent care there as well. And then what are the most scenic locations? We had Oh My Gosh Corner, pretty much everywhere around here. And we also had that conversation that it's a balance, right? We do want to grow and we want to have these abilities to have things like an urgent care, but we don't want it to be an eyesore either. And we want to protect our environment.
We echoed the gathering places of the AGC, the library, the rack, the sugar tree pool. Definitely, as far as the wants go with those places, focusing on indoor options in the winter when there's a wind hold, and focusing on places for families to go. The library, you know, can't be the only place for families to go. And once your kids are a little bit older, there's very limited place for your kids to go with you other than the AGC, and the AGC hours are so limited. It's often not conducive to when your kids are their most active. And so things like potentially a covered ice rink with a large available of hours, affordable skate times, and hockey times, you know, really a lot of more access for people who have those indoor interests, and being able to keep the ice available. And again, on that note, and not always bringing your kids to the bar, is, you know, because a big draw is the arcade. So, you know, maybe a larger arcade space or safe space. Sometimes it feels like when you go to the Sugarloaf Inn, that feels a little safer, that's a little larger. But, you know, the kids are there with us, so it would be nice if it was, you know, or maybe at the bowling, you know, the bowling area, having a larger indoor space, teaming up with them for places for families to go. As far as wants, we definitely talked about pedestrian trail access to Kingfield and Stratton, expanding that. A bridge access across from the Sugarloaf side over to the other side from, what did we say? Who said it? Someone?
Campbellfield.
Campbellfield, crossing 27. We talked about the valley area and what might potentially go in for storefronts there. Definitely wanting either some sort of coffee shop, ice cream feel, like people might come off the trails at the bowling alley and it feels like we don't have like that place for them to go for lunch and ice cream and, you know, that kind of thing. And maybe a retail option. We're a little limited in where we can get clothing, shoes, you know, this isn't always open, buying a pair of ice skates, buying a pair of snowshoes, that type of thing. We did say that while we do have the scenic vistas, that they're not as accessible. Do we want that like Rangeley has to, you know, Oh My Gosh Corner comes up, but you can't stop really and take a good picture without power lines being in the picture. things like that. This is clearly one of our best views. We talked about sewer infrastructure in order to potentially in the AGC outdoor center area if there were expansions.
But we also said places like the chapel, other amenities, I think that maybe weren't mentioned with the golf course and the sports and fitness center, the Sugar Bowl, in here. For scenic areas, we said the narrow gauge, airport, the main Hudson Trails, Oh My Gosh Corner, the golf course, and Sugarloaf. For things that we want, indoor pickleball, very avid about a deli and a bakery. More access to the Penobscot Indian Nation land so we continue to build better relationships and have more access to recreation that way. We also mentioned better cell phone service, more kids activities, such as especially year-round and for local young families, and making sure that we tackle both teens and younger demographics, doing things like expanding the AGC and covered ice rink here maybe. Mentioned elderly housing, larger town office, and better access to golf for residents, a little bit more affordable.